I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, although not necessarily at court expense. You have the right to be present at all future hearings. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue. You could be charged with failure to appear as a separate criminal offense, and you could be tried and convicted in your absence. If you couldn't be sentenced within 90 days because of your failure to appear, you could also lose your right to appeal. Sir, I understand that you're being held on other felony charges. On these misdemeanor charges, I'm going to release you on your own signature. I'm ordering that you do not have any contact with the listed victims and do not go to their residence or workplace. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you in the interests of justice. And I'm giving you a non-transport review court date on January 15th at 9 o'clock in the morning. If you're in custody, your attorney will handle that hearing for you. If you're not in custody, you must appear for that hearing at Tucson City Court with Judge Verena. Do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court dates?
No, Your Honor.
All right, good luck, sir.
And Your Honor, when we get to the JP court warrant, I'll definitely be able to provide info because I know you usually want, the additional info.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, there it is. Okay. Hello.
Hello, Mayor.
Yeah.
What's your full name?
Tayson Lynn Kent Spangleman.
All right, sir, you're here because you're charged with having while being a minor and while possessing a weapon while being a prohibited possessor. On both charges, I'm entering a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services is telling me that you are in the lowest risk category for a non-violent felony offense. The state is asking for a $10,000 bond. Give me 1 minute to finish reviewing all of the paperwork here. All right, defense counsel.
Your Honor, it looks like he's already being held on a probation hold. He does have verified housing employment. He's a student. He's support with his aunt. He's only 16 years old. But given the hold, we'd be asking for a $2,000 bond. Based on the interim complaint, there's no date listed as to when this music video was recorded. So I think there is still a dispute as to whether or not he was a prohibited possessor at the time. So we'd ask the court to consider that in issuing the bond.
All right, I'm very concerned by the fact that he's on probation for an offense that involved a weapon and he's possessing a weapon. I do, though, recognize that he's fairly low risk on the assessments and is very young and only working part-time. I'm going to set bond in this matter for the amount of $5,000 secured. Sir, you have a probation hold, so if you post the bond, you're not going to get out unless the probation hold is also lifted. If that happens, if you're released from the jail, you have to report to pretrial services. You're not to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons whatsoever, and you must submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. Your next court date on this is December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing, and that court date is very likely to change. So if you are released from custody, please make sure you stay in touch with your attorney and with pretrial services so you know when your court date is. If you miss it, you will get a warrant. Do you have any questions about your bond or your court date or your release conditions?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, I think neighbor refused.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to continue this to the morning because the defendant refused.
Liv. Want me to back
No,
it?
it's just my name. Thank you.
Hi, sir, what's your full name?
Wesley Pete Jr., Wesley Lewis Pete Jr., man.
All right, sir, you're here because you have warrants out of Tucson City Court. You have a pending case where you're charged with indecent exposure. And then you have 3 cases where you are on probation and you failed to appear for a sentence review hearing. Sir, I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you on the pending case. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, although not necessarily at court expense. You have the right to be present for all future hearings. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue. You could be charged with failure to appear as a separate criminal offense. You could be tried and convicted in your absence, and if you couldn't be sentenced within 90 days because of your failure to appear, you could also lose your right to appeal. Sir, on these cases, I'm going to set a bond of $150 secured on the pending case and a bond of $150 secured on the probation cases for a grand total of $300 secured. On the pending case, I'm ordering that you do not go back to the residence of Magnolia Massenburg, and I'm appointing the city public defender's office to represent you. And on the probation cases, I'm also appointing the city public defender's office to represent you. I'm ordering that you follow all conditions of probation. Setting your cases for a video review on December 20th at 1:45. If you're in custody, you'll be seen by video. Sir, if you're released before then your court date changes to January 8th at 9:00 in the morning at Tucson City Court with Judge Mayhew. You must appear for that hearing. If you're not there, like I said, a warrant could issue and all of those other things could happen. Sir, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court dates? All right, good luck, sir.
Have a seat out there.
What I got here, what?
Yeah.
All right, ma'am, what's your full name?
Tia Johnny Schmidt.
All right, have you also been known as Tia Ramsey?
That's my maiden name.
All right. I believe that there's an attorney. Oh, she hasn't called in yet? I'm told that there's a defense attorney logging on in this case. I'll give it a couple more minutes, but I'm gonna. It's 11 minutes past the beginning of IAs. I can't hold everyone up for long. All right. Ma'am, who's the attorney that was trying to appear today? Do you know the name of the attorney?
Yeah, Jacqueline Chapman.
All right, someone just joined us on Teams. Can you please identify yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, Your Honor. Jackie Coaches Chapman. I'm defense counsel for Tia Ramsey.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, I was already started her hearing, but all I've done so far is identify her. Are you entering a notice of appearance for today only or for the case itself?
We are going to be entering for the case itself. We did send over that notice of appearance earlier, so it should already be getting processed in the court system.
All right, and I'm sorry, tell me one more time. It's is it Jacqueline?
Jacqueline Coaches Chapman.
All right, so Ms. Schmidt, you are here because you've been charged with assault as a domestic violence offense. I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney, and apparently you've hired an attorney who is present by Teams. You have the right to be present at all future hearings. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue. You could be charged with failure to appear as a separate criminal offense. You could be tried and convicted in your absence, and if you couldn't be sentenced within 90 days because of your failure to appear, you could lose your right to appeal. Pretrial services is telling me that you are in the lowest risk category for misdemeanor offenses. I intend to release her on her own signature. Did you want to be heard, Ms. Chapman?
No, if the court's inclined to release our OR, that's what we would be asking for.
Right. So Ms. Schmidt, I am releasing you on your own signature. You are ordered not to commit any acts of domestic violence, not to have any contact with Matthew Schmidt, and not to go to his residence or workplace. And I am giving you a court date of January 14th at 1:30 in the afternoon with Judge Millian at Tucson City Court. Again, you must appear for that hearing. Ma'am, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court date?
No, ma'am.
All right. Anything else, Ms. Chapman?
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Yep, for a total of 300. Yep. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, ma'am. What's your full name?
Sarah Ann Carson.
All right. And have you
Also
also
made
gone-
in his minor.
All right. You've also
Sorry.
all right. I want to be clear. You're Sarah Carson and you've also gone by Sarah Minor, correct?
Yeah, minor's my maiden name.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Ma'am, you're here because you've been charged with child abuse and neglect. I am going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services is treating this as a violent felony and telling me that you're in the lowest risk category for that offense. The state is asking for a $10,000 bond.
What?
Give me 1 moment, ma'am. All right, I'm inclined to release her to pretrial services. Defense counsel, do you want to be heard?
No, Your Honor, that's what we'd be asking for.
All right, ma'am, I am ordering that you are released to pretrial services. You are not to have any alcohol or illegal drugs. Do not possess any firearms or weapons, and you must submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. I am going to order that you have no contact with the listed victims unless it's approved by DCS. And that you are not to go to their residence. Now, my understanding is DCS took custody of them. If they're not at your home, then you can go back to your home, but you can't go to wherever they're staying, okay? Again, unless DCS approves it.
I only have visits with my kids every Saturdays approved by DCS.
All right, and I'm going to set this for a preliminary hearing on December 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. Ma'am, that court date is very likely to change. So please stay in touch with pretrial services and with your attorney so that you know when your court date is and you don't miss it. If you do, you'll get a warrant. Do you have any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Hello.
All right, this is the defendant who needs the interpreter.
Very
Sir,
good,
what's
Your
your full name?
Diga, señor, diga su nombre completo.
Martín Armando de la Torre Domínguez.
Martín Armando de la Torre Domínguez.
Sir, you're here because you've been charged with possession of a dangerous drug for sale and possession of a narcotic drug for sale. I will enter a not guilty plea for you. You have the right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Señor, se le han presentado dos cargos, uno de posesión de una droga peligrosa destinado para la venta y la otra es posesión de una droga narcótica destinada para la venta. Entonces, go ahead, Your Honor.
You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney.
Tiene derecho a guardar silencio y también tiene derecho a un abogado.
I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you.
Estoy nombrándole la oficina del defensor público a que lo represente.
Pretrial services tells me you are in the lowest risk category for nonviolent felony offenses.
Los servicios preprocesales me informan que usted está en la categoría más baja para ofensas de delito mayor no violentas.
The state is asking for a $100,000 bond.
El Estado está pidiendo una fianza de $100,000.
Defense counsel, I am inclined to impose a bond based on his criminal history and the amount of drugs involved.
Le dice le dice la jueza, la abogada defensora que está pensando imponerle una fianza debido a la cantidad de droga involucrada y debido a sus antecedentes penales.
Do you want to be heard?
¿Quiere decir algo?
Yes, Your Honor, just regarding the amount.
Sí, señoría, en cuanto a la cantidad.
So as you noted, he's lowest on the scale by pretrial services, but his prior, looks like he has one prior from 2013. And he was terminated early from probation for his success.
Señoría, aquí vemos que tiene un antecedente penal desde el 2013, pero terminó temprano su régimen probatorio debido a su éxito.
It looks like he has ties to the community as he claims to have been here for the last 20 years. And he's 58 years old with no misdemeanor convictions.
Y también tiene vínculos en la comunidad. Ha estado aquí por los últimos 28 años. Tiene 20 años. Tiene 50 años y no tiene delitos de menores.
He's also homeless and employed as a painter, so a low income. And so for those reasons, we'd be asking for no more than a $20,000 bond.
También él está desamparado, es pintor, entonces estamos pidiendo una fianza baja de unos $20,000.
All right, I do think a $20,000 bond is appropriate given his financial situation.
Pienso que una fianza de $20,000 es apropiado debido a su situación económica.
Sir, your bond.
Your Honor,
Go ahead, hold on.
Your Honor, I find it very hard to believe that's his financial situation, given that an individual with a distribution prior wouldn't be trusted with this amount of drugs if he wasn't involved in more of what's being suspected here.
Señoría, estoy teniendo dificultad creyendo que una persona con un antecedente penal de distribución no estuviera involucrado debido a la grande cantidad que se está involucrado aquí.
Mr. Goodman, I understand your position.
Sí entiendo su postura, señor fiscal.
I'm trying to balance the fact that he has a prior for distribution and the amount of drugs he has with his risk assessment and what I know about his financial situation.
Estoy tratando de equilibrar en cuanto a la cantidad de drogas, en cuanto a su antecedente penal, en cuanto a la evaluación de su riesgo de reincidir y su situación económica.
So I do think a $20,000 bond is appropriate under these circumstances.
Entonces, conforme a estas circunstancias, sí pienso que una fianza de $20,000 es apropiado.
Sir, if you post bond, you're released to pretrial services.
Señor, si acaso usted deposita la fianza, va a ser liberado bajo la supervisión de los servicios preprocesales.
You're not to have any alcohol, illegal drugs, firearms, or weapons.
Se le prohibirá portar armas, drogas ilegales o alcohol ni otras armas.
You must submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services.
Y debe estar disponible para someterse a monitoreo o tratamiento que le ordene que haga los servicios preprocesales.
Your next court date is December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Su siguiente audiencia es el 23 de diciembre a la 1:30 de la tarde.
That court date is a preliminary hearing and it is very likely to change.
Esta audiencia es una audiencia preliminar y es muy probable que cambie esa fecha.
If you're released from custody, please stay in touch with your attorney and with pretrial services so you know when your hearing is.
Si acaso usted es liberado, deposita la fianza, por favor mantenga contacto con su abogado y con los servicios preprocesales para que usted sepa cuándo es su siguiente audiencia.
If you miss court, a warrant will issue.
Y si usted falta de comparecer a su audiencia, se emitirá una orden de arresto en su nombre.
Sir, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court date?
Señor, ¿tiene preguntas acerca de sus condiciones de liberación o su fecha de su siguiente audiencia?
Doesn't.
Is that a no, sir?
Es que dijo que no, señor.
No.
No.
All right.
No.
Good luck, sir.
Muy bien, buena suerte, señor.
And thank you.
Ahora-
Where you can be excused.
Thank you.
You know the first.
Hi, sir. What's your full name?
Fernando Dominguez Espinosa.
All right, sir, you're here on 3 different things. I'm going to start with the new felony charges. You are charged with burglary as a felony. The officer also submitted misdemeanor charges for criminal damage and theft. The criminal damage is a domestic violence offense. However, I'm not finding probable cause for the misdemeanors, as I was not given any dollar amount for the theft or the criminal damage, but I do find probable cause for the burglary charge. Sir, you have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services tells me that you are in the highest risk category for nonviolent felony offenses. The state is asking for a $10,000 bond. Give me one moment to finish reviewing your paperwork. All right, defense counsel.
Your Honor, I talked to my client here, and it sounds like he lives out of town, and that's why he's been struggling to get to court for the 2 misdemeanors. I would like to point out that he doesn't have any prior felony convictions, and as you noted, this is considered nonviolent. It looks like his last misdemeanor conviction is from 2018. So given that fact, we'd ask you give him a chance on pretrial services, as he's not had that opportunity before. If you are inclined for a bond, then no more than a $2,500 bond given the offense.
All right, I am going to set a bond in the amount of $5,000 secured based largely on the risk assessment and the failure to appear history. Sir, your bond is set at $5,000 secured. If you post bond, you're released to pretrial services. No alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and you must submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. You're not to have any contact whatsoever with Maria Dominguez or your minor aged nephew, and you are not to go to their residence or workplace. You may go back one time with law enforcement to get any belongings you have there. That means you can take my order to a police station that's near their address, and someone will go with you to get your things. I am setting a preliminary hearing on December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is likely to change. So if you're released from custody before then, please stay in touch with your attorney and with pretrial services so that you know when your next court date is. All right, sir, you also have a warrant, 2 warrants out of Pima County Justice Court. Your charges include displaying a false plate, failure to appear, DUI, and failure to appear. I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I am going to appoint one for you. All right, I'm going, oh, looks like you already had an attorney appointed. It's going to be John Illies, and his name and phone number will be in your paperwork. I am going to set a bond on each of those cases in the amount of $250. I note that on one of the cases, the judge actually asked me to hold you on a much higher bond. But given the fact that you're also held on a felony, I don't find that's appropriate right now. So it's $250 secured on each case, which makes it $500 total on the misdemeanors. You're ordered not to drive unless you have a valid driver's license, not to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Your next court date in Justice Court is going to be tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And you will be seen by video if you're in custody. If you are released from custody before then, make sure that you appear for that hearing or a warrant will issue. Give me one moment. All right, sir, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court dates?
No.
Lexer.
No.
Hi, sir, what's your full name?
Seba Dueñez.
All right, sir, you're here on a couple different things. Let's see, in Superior Court, you have a warrant for failure to appear at an initial appearance and arraignment. The charge in that case is aggravated shoplifting. It looks like you were previously held on this case and then it was dismissed and refiled. Summons was sent and I have no reason to believe that you received that summons. In addition, sir, you have a new charge of aggravated shoplifting. On both of those cases, I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services tells me that you are in the highest risk category for nonviolent felony offenses. The state is asking for a $1,500 bond on the older case and a $5,000 bond on the newer case. Defense counsel.
Your Honor, it looks like he is unemployed, and on this old case, it looks like he was originally held on a $5,000 bond and wasn't able to post it until the case was ultimately dismissed. So given his financial status, we'd be asking that you impose no more than a $1,500 bond per case.
All right, given his risk assessment score and his criminal history, I think he's at a very high risk to reoffend. I'm going to set bond in the amount of $2,500 secured on each of the 2 felony cases for a total of $5,000 secured. Sir, if you post bond, you're released to pretrial services. You're not to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. I'm going to order in the newer case. Give me one moment. In both cases, I'm going to order that you do not go back to the incident location. So wherever it is that you were charged with shoplifting, do not go back there. On the newer case, I'm setting a preliminary hearing on December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That court date is very likely to change. Sir, if you are not in custody, stay in touch with your attorney and with pretrial services so you know when your court date is. If you miss it, you will get a warrant. On the older case, I am setting all of the same release conditions. However, your court date is different in that one. In that case, sir, your next court date is going to be December 18th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is an arraignment and that is not likely to change. So if you're released from custody, you need to appear for that hearing or a warrant will issue. Sir, you also have misdemeanor cases. You have a warrant out of Tucson City Court for failure to appear on charges of shoplifting, failure to appear, and shoplifting. On these cases, let me see when this was filed, October. On these cases, I am going to release you on your own signature. I'm going to appoint the City Public Defender's Office in the interest of justice. I am ordering that you do not return to the incident location. And your next court date on these is a non-transport review on January 8th at 9 o'clock in the morning. If you are in custody, your attorney will handle that hearing for you. If you are not in custody, you must appear for that hearing or a warrant will issue. Sir, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court dates?
Any questions, Doug?
No.
Nope. All right, sir. Thank you. Good luck.
Hello.
Hi, sir. What's your full name?
My name is Rolando Martin Hernandez.
All right, sir, you're here because you've been charged with aggravated assault and unlawful use of a means of transportation. I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the Public Defender's Office to represent you. Pretrial Services tells me that you are a level 2 out of 4 on their risk assessment for violent felony offenses. The state is asking for a $25,000 bond. Give me one moment to finish reviewing the paperwork. Date, is he still on probation?
No, I haven't been on probation. Nothing.
Your Honor, I don't believe that's the case. I just noted that he's technically has a prior case involving the 2 counts of aggravated assault.
Right, and he was just placed on probation in 22. That's why I was asking. You don't believe he's still on probation for that? It sounds like he's saying he's not.
I don't believe that's the case, Judge, and I would imagine it would, if he was, that PTS would reflect he was still on GIPS or something of that nature.
All right. Defense counsel?
Your Honor, he's only 18 years old. He's unemployed. He's living with his parents. He's a high school student, and he's got ties to the community as a lifelong Tucson resident. So given those factors, we would be asking for no more than a $7,500 bond.
All right, so the alleged assault is a punch It's aggravated because of the age of the listed victim, which is 14 years old. I'm concerned about the fact that he has a new violent criminal activity flag, and his only prior criminal history that I'm aware of also included aggravated assault. On the other hand, he's level 2 out of 4 on the risk assessment, and he's young. He's only 18 years old. And he's not employed.
And Judge, I would just note this is not just limited to the ag assault. It's also the property offense.
I'm aware.
And he's clear, and he's clearly a violent individual, even if he is 18 years old. He's literally committing a similar offense not too long after that juvenile adjudication.
And that very clearly concerns me. I only mentioned the aggravated assault specifically because there's lots of different ways that something can be aggravated assault, some of which are worse than others, in my opinion.
Agreed, Judge. And this one would be a DCAC, so he would be looking at significant mandatory prison time on this.
All right, I'm going to set bond on this in the amount of $10,000 secured. Sir, if you post that bond, you're released to pretrial services, no alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. You're not to have any contact whatsoever with either victim, and you are not to go to their residence or workplace. Your next hearing on this is a preliminary hearing on December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. Sir, that court date is very likely to change. If you're released from custody before then, you need to stay in touch with your attorney and with pretrial services so that you know when your court date is. If you miss it, you will get a warrant. Sir, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court date?
No, ma'am.
All right, good luck, sir.
Hello.
Hi, sir, what's your full name?
Jose Martin Molina.
All right, sir, you're here because you've been charged with 2 counts of organized retail theft. I am going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services tells me that you are in the highest risk category for nonviolent felony offenses. The state's asking for a $10,000 bond. Defense counsel.
Your Honor, I don't believe a $10,000 bond is necessary. He is unemployed and homeless. It looks like he doesn't have any prior felony convictions at 31 years old and does not have an active NVCA flag. So given his financial situation and the nonviolent offense, we'd be asking for no more than $5,000.
All right. given the fact that this is a nonviolent offense and he does not have an NVCA flag and he has no prior felonies, but I have to balance that with the fact that he has a very significant history of failure to appear and scores very high on the risk assessment. Also, he has several cases pending in Tucson City Court. At least 3 of those are similar offenses. For all those reasons, I am going to set a bond. However, it's reported to me that he's been homeless for 2 years and I have to consider his ability to pay. So I'm going to set bond in the amount of $2,500 secured. Sir, if you post that bond, you're released to pretrial services. No alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and you must submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. I'm ordering that you do not return to any CVS store while this case is pending. Your next court date on these is December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. However, that court date is very likely to change. So if you're released from custody before then, you need to stay in touch with pretrial and with your attorney so that you do not miss your court date. If you do, you'll get a warrant. Sir, you also have warrants out of Tucson City Court for shoplifting, possession of drug paraphernalia, failure to appear, shoplifting, failure to appear, shoplifting, possession of drug paraphernalia, and failure to appear. On those cases, I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. You have the right to be present at all future hearings. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue. You could be charged with failure to appear as a separate criminal offense. You could also be tried and convicted in your absence. And if you couldn't be sentenced within 90 days because of your failure to appear, you could lose your right to appeal. On these cases, I am going to release you on your own signature. I'm ordering that you do not go back to the incident location on any of them and that you do not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. Your next court date on this is a non-transport review on January 15th at 2:00. Sir, if you're in custody, your attorney will handle that hearing for you. If you're released from custody before then, you must appear for that hearing or a warrant could issue. That hearing is set before me at Tucson City Court. My name is Judge Surio. Do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court dates?
No, ma'am.
All right, good luck, sir.
Can go out? Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sir, what's your full name?
Hello, Brendan Sam.
All right, sir, you're here because you've been charged with theft by extortion. I will enter a not guilty plea for you. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services tells me that you are in the lowest risk category for a non-violent felony offense. It appears that you do not have any prior felonies. The state is asking that I release you to pretrial services, and I do think that's appropriate. Sir, you're released to pretrial services. You are not to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and you must submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. Sir, you are not to have any contact at all with the listed victim, and you cannot go to that person's residence or workplace. Your next court date on this is December 31st at 1:30 in the afternoon. That court date is likely to change. So if you're released from custody before then, stay in touch with your attorney and with pretrial services so they can inform you of your court date. If you miss court, you will receive a warrant. Sir, do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court date? Okay, for the record, he's shaking his head no. All right, good luck.
Good night, thank you.
So,
Okay, what's your full name?
Luis Romero Jr.
Sir, you're here because you've been charged with possession of a dangerous drug, possession of a narcotic drug, and possession of drug paraphernalia. The state has moved to dismiss your case. Sir, I am dismissing it, but I'm dismissing it without prejudice. That means that the state can refile the charges within the statute of limitations, which is 7 years. Sir, sometimes when they dismiss a case, they want to dismiss it and they don't want to deal with it for some reason. Sometimes, though, they're planning to refile it after they get more evidence, for example, test results, okay? So if they refile the charges, they are very likely to mail you a summons. Make sure you check your mail and make sure you forward your mail with the post office if you move. Because if they refile the charges and they send a summons, if you don't get it and don't come to court, they're going to issue a warrant. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, do you have any questions?
No.
All right, good luck, sir.
Okay. Three.
so
Hi, what's your full name?
Valentina Anadina Ruiz.
All right, give me a moment here. You have several cases. All right, so we're gonna start with Superior Court. You have a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court. The charges are possession of a narcotic drug and possession of drug paraphernalia. It looks like you were arrested in May of 23. You were released to pretrial services. You never contacted pretrial services and you didn't appear for court. On that case, I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You do have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you. Pretrial services tells me that you are in the highest risk category for nonviolent felony offenses. The state is asking for a $500 bond. Defense counsel.
I just need a moment, Your Honor. Your Honor, after speaking with Ms. Ruiz, it sounds like she's been under this understanding that she was in contact with pretrial services for this case. I'm not sure where the disconnect is there. But you know, she's dealt with these types of charges in these cases before. She knows what to expect. She's willing to show up and deal with it. She does have employment that she is actively involved with and doesn't want to lose that opportunity. So we're asking you give her another chance on pretrial services. Otherwise, we wouldn't object to the $500 fine.
Because I did contact I did contact Courtney, Your Honor.
All right, well, ma'am, you are in the highest possible risk category for committing new criminal offenses and for failure to appear. I'm about to see you on 5 other misdemeanor cases that you failed to appear on 4 of those. Some of them repeatedly. One of them is from 2016. That looks like a post. All right. So I am going to set bond in the amount of $500 secured. I think a bond is necessary to assure your appearance. Ma'am, if you post bond, you're released to pretrial services, no alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and submit to any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. Your next court date on this is an arraignment hearing on December 18th at 1:30 in the afternoon. If you're in custody, they will bring you to that hearing. If you're out of custody, you need to appear for that hearing or a warrant would issue. Ma'am, that court date is not going to change. It's an arraignment, not a preliminary hearing. So those court dates very rarely change. In Pima County Justice Court, you have 2 warrants. One is from a 2022 case. You were charged with shoplifting, criminal trespass, and failure to appear. The other is from a 2023 case. You're charged with shoplifting, possession of drug paraphernalia, and criminal trespass. I will enter a not guilty plea on those. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I am going to appoint an attorney to represent you. I'm going to appoint Robin Auld, A-U-L, oh no, wait, Miss Waters, because I was going to appoint Miss Waters, but somebody already had a different attorney. So it's going to be Caitlin Waters is going to be appointed to represent you. Her name and phone number will be in your paperwork. Ma'am, I am going to set a $100 bond on each of those cases. It is secured. I'm ordering that you do not go back to the incident location on either of those. And in that case, those cases, your next hearing is tomorrow at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with Judge Ball. If you're in custody, you'll be seen by video. If you're out of custody, then you need to appear for that hearing or a warrant could issue. All right, give me one moment. I have to fill this out twice because there's 2 separate cases. All right, ma'am, and then you have cases out of Tucson City Court. You have a new case where you're charged with criminal trespass. I will enter a not guilty plea for you on that one. You also have pending charges of shoplifting and failure to appear, and I will enter a not guilty plea for you on that one as well. In addition, it looks like you have a warrant on an adjudicated case. It looks like you were placed on probation in 2016.
All charges on.
Failed to appear for an order to show cause hearing. A warrant issued. You were arrested on that. Then you failed to appear twice and a warrant issued. You've been failing to appear on this one for a very long time. However, the state never filed a petition to revoke probation, so your probation has expired. So what I'm going to do is on the 2016 Tucson City Court case, I'm going to find that probation expired. Proofs are waived. I'm going to send the case to collections. unless if you're behind on payments. And I'm going to order that you be released on that case.
Yeah, you can second. Yeah, you can second here. See what I'm here.
All right, but on the other two Tucson City Court cases, I'm gonna set a bond in the amount of $100 secured on those. I'll appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. I'm going to order again that you do not go back to the incident location. And your next court date on this is December 20th at 1:45. If you're in custody, you'll be seen by video. If you're released from custody before then, your your court date changes to January 16th at 9:00 in the morning. You must appear for that hearing, or a warrant could issue. You could be tried and convicted in your absence. And if you couldn't be sentenced within 90 days because of your failure to appear, you could also lose your right to appeal. That makes your total bond $800 secured. Ma'am, do you have any questions about your court dates?
No, Your Honor.
I'm gonna go.
Good luck, ma'am.
Thank you. No.
All right, sir, what's your full name?
Darrell Allen Small.
All right, so you are here because you have a warrant. It looks like this was a direct complaint and warrant issued. The charges are aggravated assault with a weapon, aggravated assault resulting in serious physical injury. The bond on the warrant is $50,000. Pretrial services tells me that you are in level 2 out of 4 as far as risk is concerned for violent felony offenses. The state is asking for a $50,000 bond. In a minute, I'm going to ask the prosecutor to give me a little bit of an idea about what the underlying facts that are alleged are, but give me one moment to review this first. All right, Mr. Goodman?
Yes, Your Honor. Essentially, in this case, the defendant's alleged to have had a baseball bat attack the victim with said bat, cause injuries to the head. It appears to be an unprovoked attack. Also hitting his body and leg with the bat. There was lacerations to the face and head and actually broke the victim's leg. And as the court's aware, typically JP court warrants have to issue because defendants flee the scene of the crime. So I'd ask the court to not give much weight to, well, he wasn't arrested because he actually fled, and that's why this warrant had to issue.
Let me ask you, is there any relationship between the victim and the listed victim and the defendant?
No, I mean, I'm not saying there's not some sort of, I want to say connection, but this doesn't appear to be any sort of like close relationship where there was, a disagreement and they fought or anything like that. The victim went over to the residence, and as soon as the door was open, the defendant attacked him with a bat.
All right. Defense counsel?
Your Honor, I think it's important to also note that a felony warrant should only be issued in cases where they can't find the defendant. I don't think it's enough just to flee from the scene. It sounds like he's been living at the current address for 2.5 years. So I'm not sure why a summons couldn't be issued. This is from early November, so a little over a month ago. He hasn't picked up anything since. He doesn't have any violent priors. He has housing, employment, and support with a friend. He does not have an active NVCA flag, and he's only scoring a 3 on both of the scales. So we'd ask you give him a chance on pretrial services. If you're inclined for a bond, then no more than a $15,000 bond.
And I want to make it clear, Judge, it's not simply that he just fled the scene of the crime the day of. Like she said, if he was just out in the open in the public, I'm sure law enforcement would have been happy to go over there and arrest him right away.
Well, the reality is the state's prerogative to charge and request a warrant, and that it's the judge's discretion whether to issue the warrant or not. I am obviously very concerned about the nature of the charges. However, I also need to balance that with the fact that he does not have a new violent criminal activity flag, and he is only a 3 out of 6 on the new criminal activity and failure to appear risk scales. It looks like he does have prior felonies, but they are all non-violent. I see these 2 cases were pending at the same time. These are hard cases. I am going to give more weight to the risk assessment than to the nature of the allegations, because that's the way the system's designed. I'm supposed to release someone unless they are a risk to the community or a risk of failure to appear. However, I do think a bond is appropriate. I'm not going to set a $50,000 bond. In this case, I'm going to set bond. I'm going to set bond in the amount of $10,000 secured. Sir, if you post that bond, you're released to pretrial services. You're not to have any alcohol or illegal drugs, no firearms or weapons, and you must submit any monitoring or treatment that's directed by pretrial services. You're not to have any contact with the alleged victim, and you're not to go to that person's residence or workplace. I should have said it earlier. I'm not sure if I did. I'm entering a not guilty plea for you. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the legal advocate's office to represent you in this case. Your next court date on this is a preliminary hearing on December 23rd at 1:30. Sir, that court date is likely to change. So if you're released from custody, you need to stay in touch with pretrial and with your attorney so that you know when your court date is. If you miss court, you will get a warrant. Do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court date, sir?
So,
Good luck, sir.
Hello.
Hi, ma'am. What's your full name?
Sarah Uribe.
All right, ma'am, you're here because you've been charged with aggravated shoplifting and unlawful possession of drug paraphernalia. I'm going to enter a not guilty plea for you. You have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. I'm appointing the public defender's office to represent you. Ma'am, the state's asking that you be held without bond because you were on release for another felony offense at the time of the alleged new offense. The Constitution requires that I hold you out without bond under those circumstances, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm also, so I'm going to set a no bond hearing on December 16th at 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm also setting a preliminary hearing on December 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. The hearing on the 16th should happen exactly as scheduled. The hearing on the 23rd, though, is likely to change. So if you get released from custody after the 16th, make sure you stay in touch with your attorney. If the judge releases you to pretrial, make sure you stay in touch with them as well so that they can let you know when your court date is. If you miss it, you would get a warrant. Do you have any questions about your release conditions or your court dates, ma'am?
No,
Good luck.
thank you. It looks like I can still get out on the 16th.
That is our calendar for tonight. Thank you all.
I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over I put towards my dreaming. But the only thing in life that has meaning are the things you gotta work for, believe me. Take into your hands a plan, your own hands can land your own brand. And damn, I feel like no one takes accountability. They want the credibility, convincingly unwilling to put in the fucking hours it takes to get some power. Don't be fucking sour, take a cold shower, scream until you're louder, work until you're prouder. And fuck all the doubters, they're just fucking downers. I swear to God they all let me down.